Although we've had to endure a delay of an entire year for this, the Euro 2020 tournament is nearly on our doorsteps. The tournament will have multiple nations hosting games and was promised to be a football festival for many to attend, until COVID came along. But nevertheless, this tournament looks to be wide open, with a handful of nations being genuine contenders to be the last nation standing. With that said, let's get into it. First off, and in Group A, we have Italy, Turkey, Switzerland and Wales. Wales for me are sadly the weakest link, while Switzerland topped their group to qualify, but I think they'll only manage third as they'll be up against better opposition. Turkey for me finished second in Group A, and I think they could be a bit of a dark horse in the tournament, but with home advantage for all their games, Italy for me will top the group and had very few problems in the qualifiers, and are another team that I think will shock a lot of people. Over to Group B, which contains Finland, Denmark, Belgium and Russia, and I think first timers Finland will struggle, so I'll have them last. They are just a little bit out of depth here. Third, and while I think this team will be very stubborn, I have Denmark here. In saying this, who knows, they have won 8 of the last 9 games and they do have home ground advantages like Russia. Speaking of Russia, and I have them second. Although they had some big losses recently, I think they have enough quality to bounce back, meaning the Group B winners for me has to be Belgium, who are deservedly one of the favourites. Group C contains Netherlands, Austria, Ukraine and North Macedonia, and sadly for the latter, I see them doing very little and will be bottom of the table, while the battle for second will likely be between Ukraine and Austria, and I think it could very well come down to goal difference, but I will give the nod to Ukraine, who usually go into tournaments with an underrated team. This might be a controversial call given that Austria's squad do look a little bit better on paper. This means that I have Netherlands top in the group, and they shall do this with ease. Group D is an interesting group, with England, Croatia, Scotland and the Czech Republic all looking to advance to the knockout stages. Although Czech Republic finished runner-up in the group, which funnily enough was won by England, I see them coming last here. As for third place, and I think Scotland will occupy the spot, although I expect them to make things difficult for England and Croatia, in which I have the latter in second, as Croatia look to make another deep run in a major tournament. This leaves us with England topping the table, who have a lot of lethal weapons going forward. Spain, Sweden, Slovakia and Poland all form Group E, and this is hard to predict. I'm putting Slovakia on the bottom, although they will make it very tough for other teams to score considering their decent players in the back. For Sweden, I only have them doing as good as third, just for the pure fact that I think Poland will surprise, and Spain being obviously better. And speaking of Poland, I think they advanced to the knockout rounds with a second place finish. Don't forget, they won Group G in the qualifiers and only lost a singular game, and additionally should get Lewandowski back from injury by tournament start. Needless to say, but in first place I have Spain. Group F for me is the group of death, with all of France, Germany, Portugal and Hungary, with 3 of these sides either winning a World Cup or a Euro in the past 7 years. Hungary unfortunately have to be the pick for bottom, even though they are undefeated in their last 9 games. To add to this, an interesting fact here about Hungary is that one of their biggest wins ever came against France when they demolished them 13-1. Out of the big 3, and I will go with Germany third, Portugal second and France first. Germany just have not been that dominating team in recent times, especially when you consider their home loss to North Macedonia and their drubbing at the hands of Spain. As for Portugal, this will likely be Ronaldo's last Euro tournament ever, and this team is arguably better than the one that won in 2016, and should go far again. I still have to predict 4 third place teams that will qualify for the round of 16, so I will do this now, and I will go with Germany, Scotland, Denmark and Sweden as the teams to qualify to the next round via a third place finish. Okay, with the 16 teams chosen, here is what the tournament bracket would look like if my predictions somehow are 100% accurate. Belgium vs Germany would be the first matchup in the round of 16, and what a way to kick off the knockout stages. I will have to pick Belgium here to progress, as they are in the peak of their golden generation now, and they just have to win this, compared to Germany, who aren't as strong as they used to be in truth. I won't waste too much time with the second game, as Italy should be too strong for Ukraine, whose limit is probably at the round of 16 anyway. France vs Denmark is similar to Italy vs Ukraine, and France will be superior here. I do think Denmark won't make it easy, but France just have too many stars and will overpower Denmark. Croatia vs Poland is game 4 for this stage, and I believe that this game could very well go down to extra time and perhaps penalties. Croatia aren't as strong anymore and have really struggled since their appearance in the World Cup final, but in saying this, I think they'll have just enough to advance to the quarters, but they will have a very hard job to contain Lewandowski and co. To the other side of the bracket, and Spain vs Scotland might actually be closer than what people think, as Scotland have some neat players, many of which play in the Premier League, although Spain should still have enough class to take the victory. England vs Portugal is next, and probably the other blockbuster game in this stage of the tournament alongside Belgium vs Germany. Both these teams are primed to go far, but if they both meet one another here, then it's going to be a disappointing campaign for one of these countries. England will feel like they are due for silverware, but I will say that they will need to wait a little longer, as my pick here is Portugal. Netherlands and Sweden could be a game of tactical warfare, especially if Sweden decide to sit back and counter. They have a lot of potential, the Dutch, and even if Sweden put in a great effort, I don't think it would be enough to stop Netherlands from qualifying to the quarterfinals. Turkey vs Russia is the final game in the round of 16 bracket, and it's a great opportunity for both teams to go deep into the tournament. However, I like Turkey's team quite a bit and have good plays defensively and in attack, and they'll be a surprise packet, so I'll back them to win this. Off to the quarterfinals, and game 1 of the quarters is Belgium vs Italy. This is a hard pick. I got to say that I think Italy could be one of the most underrated teams in the tournament, and they have a quality midfield with players like Locatelli and Barella, who I particularly think is one of the best box-to-box mids in the world at the moment. Don't forget about Federico Chiesa either, who is a superstar, and I think he will announce himself in this tournament even more to the world. But Belgium are still a powerhouse we can't forget. But however, saying both of these things, I'm going to predict an Italy upset and they will go to the semis. France vs Croatia is the second quarterfinal game and a rematch of the 2018 World Cup final. And although Croatia will leave everything on the pitch like the warriors they are, France are just too strong and will further give Croatians more nightmares as they move on to the semis. Spain and Portugal will add to the history of the Iberian rivalry between the two footballing nations in this quarterfinal matchup. This would be a very heated contest which could produce a red card and come down to who's the more level-headed team. I additionally think a star player could decide the game, and this sort of game just looks like the sort of game in which Cristiano Ronaldo could just take over, so I will give the nod to Portugal. And lastly, Netherlands vs Turkey is a very interesting fixture. Turkey have had the better record between the two head-to-head recently, and I am honestly smelling another upset. They are great at scoring goals and are even more competent on the other end, with Soyuncu being a fantastic defender especially. Netherlands don't completely convince me yet, but this will be a great experience for them as they'll still be a good threat in the World Cup next year. Now to the semis, and Italy vs France would be a very tasty rematch of the 2006 World Cup final. Although France probably have the stronger team here, Italy have built up a great team which could take this game potentially all the way to penalties. But I do not think Italy would be able to completely stop the dangerous frontmen France possesses, and France have better defenders who can contain the likes of Chiesa, so France for me will play in the final. Portugal vs Turkey is the other semi-final game, and once again I expect Turkey to play with a lot of heart and make things very difficult for the Portuguese. And I do think they will score in this game as well. Set pieces could be an important factor in this game, and both teams have plenty of quality in both of these areas. However, for as great of a run as this will be for Turkey, it comes to an end in the semis, as Portugal booked their ticket into the final. So it's basically then a repeat of the same final from 5 years ago, as I'm predicting another France vs Portugal final. These two already met in the Nations League twice last year, with both games being very tight affairs resembling more of a chess game than a football match. Don't forget, these two will also be meeting up in the group stages of this tournament. Both set of midfields will likely cancel each other out, and this will mean few opportunities for either team. I will go even further and say that this game will remain goalless for the vast majority of the game. Penalties are a real possibility too. France will be looking for revenge, and guess what? I think they'll get it. Meaning my ultimate prediction is for France to win Euro 2020 in 2021. To player awards, and I have Kylian Mbappe winning player of the tournament. while Gianluigi Donnarumma for me will claim the young player of the tournament honours, being that he does fit the likely criteria of being born on or after 1999. And finally, I will go with Cristiano Ronaldo to take the Golden Boot for what will likely be his last Euro tournament. I want to know your predictions in the comments section. Like the video if you enjoyed it, and subscribe to my channel for more content, which includes Formula 1 stuff too if you're a fan.